Baku, unfortunately, there's been another murder of an innocent Black man this week, Amir Locke in Minneapolis. And definitely going to look to you because as you yourself are a Minneapolis resident. Any other reflections or thoughts about all that's come up since the reveal or the body cam footage was released?
Yeah, thanks so much for asking, Carrie. And I don't know about other folks, especially folks in Minneapolis, but um, first hearing about it and then seeing the video, and there's so much trauma, especially because if folks don't know, this past election, you all, in Minneapolis, so back in November 2021, just like 3 months ago, Minneapolis residents were able to vote on an amendment that would basically say, let's reimagine what public safety means, and let's vote in, instead of the police department, let's vote in a department for public safety. That would, of course, include police and would employ police officers, but would also have a broader way of thinking of what does being safe and feeling safe mean in Minneapolis. And this really came out after George Floyd was killed and all the marches and people wanting, especially Black and brown people, wanting to feel safe in Minneapolis. And the mayor campaigned really hard against this amendment, and a lot of people, community leaders, campaigned really hard against it. And then last week, on Wednesday morning, early morning, there was a no-knock warrant that was served for an apartment in downtown Minneapolis. And Amir Locke, who was a young man who was sleeping over at a friend's house, he was sleeping on the couch in the living room, he was killed. And so hearing about that killing and seeing how he was shot and basically assassinated, it was so traumatic because we had an opportunity to really not just like, I'm not saying that if it voted the other way that Amir would be alive, right? But we'd have the opportunity to say, let's go all in and really reform. Let's go all in and really remedy some of these problems, these institutional cultural dynamics. And the mayor was very adamant against that reform, and look at where we are at. And so I'm just heartbroken by what's happening. And honestly, quite frankly, I'm a little bit despondent about, what is possible, Terry. I mean, if after George Floyd, we couldn't have reform, how can we make worthy of this moment? Amir's life was sacrificed, and what can we learn and what can we change from it? I don't know. What about you? What do you think? And
I think in the context of like, this is, we talk a lot about political education show, like first getting people to vote, but this is also then, how are you going to be implementing the things you said you're going to work on, right?
right.
And so the test for Mayor Fry and his administration will be then what does need to happen, right? How do you instill that confidence? And it's not very high right now, right? So how do you make people believe that, his leadership is going to matter, and that what he's asking people to do is going to matter, right? And so so it's a really interesting time. I think we don't talk about that a lot. We talk about who wins elections, and certainly that's really important. But then what happens afterwards? And these are the things that happen afterwards that impact everyday lives, right? In terms of public safety, right? The things that matter to us. And so I thought it was really heartbreaking that the reason Amir Clark had a gun was because he was a DoorDash driver, and he was worried about carjackings. He was worried about crime, yet, and so so I think that's, like, it's really, I mean, it's heartbreaking on that front, and for his family, right? And then for everybody else who's like, who holds out, even though there are many people who are very, very pessimistic, don't believe in the system, want to see, the police abolished, right? They want, they want some huge reforms. It's hard to be optimistic about what will change. And I think that's also why the people don't feel like their votes matter. People don't feel like their voices matter too. Mm-hmm. So it's this point now where let's get mired, we're all really frustrated to still think through, like, there's still gotta be a way. And so to me, this is the bigger lesson about how and practice of how we govern and take care of each other.
Right.
And
Terry, I
so,
wanted to I wanted to add 2 points to what you were saying too. You know, one of the first points I wanted to make is how there's a lot of information out there already about, you know, how Amir was holding the gun, you know, where his fingers were. And if you read that, it even adds more credence to the fact that this is a man who was just woken up and disoriented, and then he was just shot. And I'm not going to go into that detail. I think folks could do it themselves, because I feel like if I'm going to go into it, it's almost like I'm defending that I have to defend Amir, and I don't. You know, Amir does not have to, we do not have to justify. Amir's actions themselves don't have to justify the fact that he was brutally killed, right? But if you go and look at it, it's all the more, it will infuriate you even more. So I wanted to be really cautious about how we talk about this case, because, you know, it's like, anytime that we have to defend the people who were killed, the frame is already wrong then, right? Number one. And number two, I wanted to say that this was also a reminder, you know, we started this weekly show, right, Terry, because there was so much disinformation in the 2020 election. And I think about how in 2021, when these amendments were, you know, folks were campaigning for these amendments, there was so much disinformation about what would it mean to reimagine a Department of Public Safety, right? The opponents were saying, oh, now you're not going to have police. So if you thought crime was bad, crime is going to be even worse. Like, there was so much intentional disinformation to skew people's mind, to make them afraid that they wouldn't vote for this amendment. And I think, what you, like, to your point, we really do have to educate the citizenry, and the folks have to educate themselves. Don't get bought into like the hype and the disinformation, because I think what happened is you can really miss an opportunity to make real change.